Today, we're going to get into the science of what really grabs our attention. We're going to break down those hidden forces that kind of shape what you look at, what you click on, and why sometimes it feels literally impossible to look away.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked ourselves, right? Probably while we're scrolling. It can feel like a personal failing, maybe a lack of willpower. But what if it's not actually about you? What if your attention is being captured completely by design, using a very predictable set of psychological tools? So to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at a framework from author Ben Parr. It's called Captivology. He really digs into how our attention works and how very, very specific triggers in our world can just capture it.
Parr's whole argument here is that this is about our fundamental relationship with focus. If you can understand the mechanics of attention, you can start to understand how so much of our modern world is built. It's not just about focus anymore, it's about influence.
At the very heart of Captivology are what Parr calls the 7 attention triggers. You can think of these as a kind of psychological toolkit, a set of levers that have been part of human nature for thousands of years, way, way before screens ever existed.
So here they are. This is our roadmap to the 7 triggers: automaticity, framing, disruption, reward, reputation, mystery, and acknowledgement. Every single one is a distinct pathway to our focus. Now, we're just going to break down 3 of the most powerful ones, the ones that are used all the time in technology.
Let's start with the most primal one, automaticity. This is our brain's autopilot. It's that deep instinct that makes you jump at a loud noise or immediately notice a flash of bright color. You don't choose to do it, it's a deep-seated survival mechanism. This trigger works in a couple of main ways. First, you've got contrast, something that just stands out, like a single flashlight in a pitch-black room. And second, through association. When a sensory cue connects to something we've learned, like the color yellow being associated with a wasp, or, say, a red notification badge being associated with, well, something you feel you need to check.
Okay, next up is the reward trigger, and this one is absolutely crucial for understanding our devices. So a lot of people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about anticipation. It's the wanting system that gives you that itch to check your phone. And the key takeaway here is that the desire to do something is often a way more powerful driver than the reward itself.
And then you've got the mystery trigger. You know this feeling. It's what you get at the end of a great TV episode, that cliffhanger that makes you just have to hit next episode. We are hardwired with a compulsion for completion. Our brains just hate unfinished stories and unsolved puzzles, and that obsession is an incredibly powerful tool for holding our attention.
So, think about these triggers: automaticity, reward, mystery. You know, they're part of a balanced system. They help us navigate the world, they help us learn, and they help us survive. They aren't inherently good or bad. They're just features of how our minds work.
But what happens when these natural tendencies are studied, systematized, and then engineered into the technology we use every single day? That question, that marks a really critical shift in our story.
And this brings us to what's called the industrialization of persuasion. You know, the idea that computers can influence us isn't new. It's been studied for decades. But what has changed recently is the scale, the speed, and the ultimate goal of that persuasion. It has changed dramatically.
This timeline here shows the evolution perfectly. In the early days of captology, a term coined by B.J. Fogg at Stanford, the focus was on computers persuading users, but, and this is key, the users still held the control. You had to click, you had to actively choose. Then, during this industrialization phase, the metrics shifted from active things like clicks to passive things like dwell time, just how long you linger. And all of a sudden, the agency, the control, it migrated from the user to the system. The goal wasn't just to persuade you to act, but to keep you passively engaged for as long as humanly possible.
Okay, so let's connect the dots here. How exactly are those psychological triggers we talked about being used in the apps on your phone right now? Well, it's a very direct mapping.
This slide maps the theory directly to the tech. The automaticity trigger, that's infinite scroll and autoplay. They remove the need for you to ever make a conscious choice to continue. The reward trigger is engineered as a variable feed. It's a digital slot machine that keeps you pulling the lever for that next dopamine hit. And the mystery trigger? Well, that's the opaque For You page, where the complete unknown of what's coming next is what compels you to see just one more.
And the mapping just keeps going. Our very human need for social standing, the reputation trigger, that's targeted by follower counts and like metrics. Our desire for connection, the acknowledgement trigger,
becomes that constant buzz of notifications. And our instinct to notice something unusual, the disruption trigger, that's used to amplify emotionally charged content, because outrage is an incredibly powerful hook for our focus.
The consequences of all this, they're not a surprise. In fact, the very academic who founded the field of persuasive technology was warning everyone about the ethical dangers from the very beginning.
Way back in 2002, B.J. Fogg defined captology as technology explicitly created to change attitudes and behaviors. He saw its potential for good, like helping people with study habits, but he also saw the massive potential for misuse. The intent to persuade was baked in from day one.
Fogg flagged specific methods as being really ethically concerning, and one of the big ones was operant conditioning. Basically, using rewards and punishments to shape your behavior, especially when it happens below your level of awareness. His example of a browser that secretly slows down certain sites is a perfect illustration of a system changing your behavior without you even realizing why.
And maybe most powerfully, Fogg warned about persuasive technologies targeting vulnerable groups. As he said so clearly, children are the most obvious example. The ethical lines get very blurry, very, very fast, when these powerful psychological tools are aimed at those who are least equipped to recognize or resist them.
So, where does all this leave us? I know it might feel a little bleak, but just understanding these systems is the absolute first step toward reclaiming your own focus.
Let's be really clear. The triggers themselves aren't the enemy. The problem isn't that mysteries are compelling or that we enjoy rewards. The real issue is their continuous and automated deployment at a massive scale, how they're integrated into systems designed for profit, and how they operate just beneath the level of our conscious thought.
And that's exactly why this matters. By seeing the architecture of captivation, by recognizing the triggers as they are happening, you move from being a passive subject of the system to an active agent. That knowledge gives you the power to choose.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling, just ask yourself, which trigger is at play right now? And simply by asking that question, you might find you've already taken back a little bit of control.